Now that I've read my thesis, it definitely pairs up with the problem. And the problem is that the ability to access broadband internet is a requirement of our everyday lives. And sadly, telecommunication providers still encounter several difficulties when attempting to set up broadband internet in rural areas. This includes, of course, lack of funding, infrastructure obstacles, and regulatory restrictions as well. These barriers make it extremely difficult to not only accurately fund grants, but also limits the access to crucial resources that telecommunication companies need to provide these services. The reality of the digital divide is that the adoption of broadband internet is much lower in rural areas than in urban areas. So, telecommunication companies face hurdles that surround finances, those physical infrastructures we spoke about, and those regulations while trying to create and maintain broadband in these rural areas. Governmental agencies are not using the most up to date or reliable software, such as GIS software, so Geographic Information Systems, to establish grants, fundings, and which areas are considered to be underserved. This affects both large and small telecommunication companies. One main struggle in this is trying to bridge the gap between internet service providers and the government agencies that allocate funding. It is extremely difficult to get in touch with state officials that have been tasked with allocating funds. There needs to be more open lines of communication and ways to manage conflicts and inaccuracies. Consumers use broadband networks, like I said, to do pretty much everything. The physical infrastructure and the cost associated with building and maintaining this infrastructure is becoming astronomical for internet service providers. And we do have to remember they are businesses after all. Additionally, constructing, connecting, and also maintaining these infrastructures, it calls for a number of difficult tasks, including regulatory permissions, easements, parcel pools, and placing wireless infrastructure in difficult and hard to reach areas. And of course, areas without reliable internet access are more susceptible to lower graduation, lower work rates, and also digital literacy, which can negatively affect socioeconomic factors already in these disadvantaged areas. So the FCC has compiled data from their 477 form, which I will show you in the next slide, but it actually is really notable gap. 22.3% of Americans in rural areas still lack coverage from your basic 25.3 megabytes broadband service, as compared to only 1.5 Americans in urban areas.